Before we dive in, let's set the stage. What you are about to hear is not a simple celebrity interview gone a little sideways. It is a fictional dramatization, the kind of story that reminds us how fragile even the strongest reputations can appear when met with hostility, and how true strength is not about muscle mass, but about how one chooses to respond when kindness is met with cruelty. Imagine this scenario: a man adored across the globe, a figure who has spent decades building a legacy of empathy, encouragement, and uplifting humor steps into a television studio, expecting a friendly chat. A place filled with laughter, applause, and admiration. But instead, he walks directly into a storm he never saw coming. We're talking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, not just a blockbuster actor, not just a former champion wrestler, but a genuine force of positivity. A man whose grin is so warm and sincere that people feel better just seeing it. A celebrity known to respond personally to fans, to drop life-changing tips for servers who never expected to meet him, to visit children fighting illness without ever posting a picture for praise. This fictional story asks, what happens when that man sits down on The View expecting a celebration of his work, and instead finds himself face with hostility dressed up as journalism? Because in this dramatized version of events, Joy Behar, a host known for her sharp humor, isn't looking to laugh. She isn't interested in appreciating the guest in front of her or discussing his upcoming projects. She arrives armed with accusations, not facts, not journalism, but a deliberate on-air ambush designed to tear down one of the world's most beloved figures. It doesn't take long for the audience to sense something is wrong. Instead of playful banter, the questions turn pointed sharp enough to draw metaphorical blood. She begins with attacks on his masculinity, implying he is more marketing than man. Then she questions his authenticity, accusing him of cultivating kindness only for cameras. She raises doubts about his philanthropy, suggesting his generosity is performative. She even challenges his private political beliefs with claims unsupported by anything but imagination. For most people, that would be enough to break composure. But not Dwayne Johnson, not here, not today. He listens, he breathes, he keeps his shoulders relaxed and his voice calm. He knows millions are watching, children who see him as a hero, parents who admire the example he sets, fans who found hope in his story of perseverance. He refuses to meet cruelty with more cruelty, but that doesn't mean he isn't affected. There is a flicker in his eyes, the moment when patience reaches its breaking point, when a man who has endured hardships most never see finally thinks, enough. Because even the kindest soul deserves respect. In this fictional telling, the confrontation continues for 30 excruciating minutes. Every attempt he makes to steer the conversation toward positivity is dragged back into the mire. Every smile is met with scorn. Every act of grace is twisted into a flaw. The Rock's fans watching at home grip their seats, stunned. This isn't television tension. This isn't awkward comedy. This is character assassination broadcast live to millions. Yet through it all, Johnson never loses sight of who he is. When the moment comes, he doesn't shout. He doesn't mock. He doesn't fire back with insults. Instead, he demonstrates true strength. He speaks from the heart with clarity, dignity, and compassion, reminding everyone that kindness is not weakness, that service is not performance, and that no one's worth should be reduced to lies spoken for entertainment. He stands up, he thanks the audience for their time, he even in an act nearly saint-like expresses hope that Joy Behar has a wonderful rest of her day, and then he walks off the stage, not defeated. Not broken, but triumphant in a way that muscles and movie roles could never measure, by refusing to let cruelty reshape him into anything less than the good man he has always chosen to be. The fictional morning at The View had begun with electric anticipation. Everyone was buzzing, the producers, the assistants, the audience members who felt lucky just to share the same room as The Rock. There was laughter backstage, excitement humming like the city outside. After all, Dwayne Johnson wasn't merely a superstar, he was a cultural force, a source of motivation, a reminder that success can be kind. He stepped into the studio with a smile that could light up an arena. With gratitude for the opportunity, with his usual willingness to inspire, he shook hands, gave high fives, cracked jokes, and made every person he greeted feel like the most important human on earth. But that atmosphere changed the moment the cameras rolled and the questions turned bitter. What Joy Behar, in this fictional dramatic retelling, failed to understand is that tearing down a good person does not reveal flaws. It reveals insecurity. It shows the difference between someone who builds and someone who breaks. Viewers around the world watched the scene unfold, shocked because they didn't just see a famous man standing up for himself. They witnessed the living proof of a lesson everyone needs to remember. Strength is not dominance. Strength is dignity. And when a truly strong person walks away, the room they leave behind feels smaller. In this fictional story, The Rock's departure wasn't just a physical movement. It was a moral statement, a declaration that kindness deserves better than cruelty, that respect is non-negotiable, that even the gentlest heart has boundaries when pushed too far. It wasn't about winning. It was about integrity. It was about grace under fire. It was about showing millions of viewers what a real role model looks like when the world tests his spirit. And that is why this fictional televised clash will be remembered not for the accusations, not for the hostility, and certainly not for the host who tried to tear him down, but for the moment Dwayne Johnson proved that the strongest people in the world are the ones who stay kind when no one else does. Fresh off promoting his latest blockbuster, a film already smashing global box office records and dominating headlines, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson arrived at The View with the relaxed confidence of a man doing what he loves. The momentum behind his career wasn't slowing. If anything, it was accelerating. He had spent the last several weeks traveling city to city, meeting fans, surprising children at screenings, and delivering the kind of motivational messages that had become synonymous with his name. For most, that kind of schedule would be exhausting, but not for Johnson. For him, meeting people connecting deeply and authentically was the fuel that kept him going. He walked into the studio wearing a suit that fit him so perfectly, it seemed sculpted rather than stitched. Despite his massive build, the physique of a superhero made real the outfit somehow rendered him approachable, warm, human. His smile, wide and effortless, communicated gratitude more loudly than any words could. Here was a man who remembered exactly where he came from, a young kid with only $7 in his pocket, fighting every single day to turn struggle into legacy, and now one of the highest paid actors in Hollywood. A global icon, a living testament to resilience. His energy radiated ease, not arrogance, not entitlement, but genuine humility blended with the confidence of someone who has risen, fallen, and risen again without ever losing sight of kindness. But unknown to him, across the stage, something starkly different was brewing behind carefully controlled facial expressions. Joy Behar, veteran host, sharp-tongued comedian, and in this fictional story, a woman convinced she was about to deliver a career-defining moment. The night before, while everyone else celebrated Johnson's success, she had been preparing, not a thoughtful exploration of his craft, not a conversation about his businesses, his community outreach, or his advocacy for mental health. Instead, she constructed what she believed would be a fearless interrogation, but what was, in truth, nothing more than a premeditated attempt at public humiliation. In her mind, peeling back layers of his public persona would reveal a dark truth beneath. Toxic masculinity, Hollywood hypocrisy, a carefully engineered image hiding something sinister. She had convinced herself that the world was being fooled, and she was the only one brave enough to expose it. But what she had really prepared was a showcase of her own willingness to attack without evidence. As Johnson approached the set, the stage lights bathed everything in a warm glow. The cameras rolled. The audience, already buzzing from anticipation, exploded into applause that felt like a tidal wave. They didn't stand because they felt obligated. They stood because they were thrilled. Phones shot into the air like confetti, capturing a moment they would brag about for years. I was there when The Rock walked into the studio. Strangers smiled at one another, united by shared admiration for the man who had spent years giving the world moments of hope and laughter. The positive energy in the room seemed to double, then triple, simply because he existed in that space. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dwayne Johnson," Whoopi Goldberg announced with unmistakable sincerity. Her grin wasn't staged, it was real respect for a man who had earned it over and over again. Johnson stepped forward, waving, his presence so large it felt like the studio itself expanded just to contain him. Every movement, Every expression was a reminder that charisma doesn't need to be demanded, it can simply be present. "Thank you so much for having me," he said, easing into his seat with the comfort of someone who has spent a lifetime connecting with audiences face to face. "Always great to be here with you ladies." Sunny Hostin, Sarah Haynes, and Alyssa Farah Griffin leaned in, excited and fully engaged. Their smiles weren't for the cameras, they were for him. Even Joy Behar kept up a pleasant facade, chuckling, nodding, appearing supportive. But to the rare observer trained to notice micro-expressions, there was something off, a glimmer in her eyes that wasn't warmth, it was calculation, as though she was waiting for her opportunity to strike. For the moment, though, the conversation followed the familiar path of daytime talk, show charm. "So, Dwayne," Whoopi said, guiding the interview with her signature ease, "tell us about the new movie. I heard it's already breaking all kinds of records." Johnson's face lit up even more, if that was possible. Talking about a project he loved, that was his comfort zone. His passion was contagious. "You know, I'm incredibly grateful," he replied, his voice full of sincerity, not manufactured PR polish. "The fans have been absolutely amazing. Working with this cast has been a dream come true. We really wanted to create something special, something families could enjoy together. Action and heart in equal measure." You could feel it, he meant every word. There was no part of him that saw this moment as transactional. He wasn't just promoting a film. He was sharing excitement with people who rooted for him, who believed in him. And while he spoke, hands animated just enough to show enthusiasm without overwhelming the frame, most of the hosts leaned in, smiling wider with every word. This was supposed to be the energy for the entire segment: joy, celebration, gratitude. But lurking at the edge of the panel sat Joy Behar, waiting with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her posture shifted subtly. Her hands curled around her note cards, not like a host preparing to ask a question, but like someone gripping tightly onto a weapon she couldn't wait to unsheath. The applause faded. The laughter softened. Her moment was coming, but what she didn't realize, what she couldn't possibly prepare for, was that the man she thought she could break wasn't built by fame. He was built by struggle, by love, by resilience. By choosing kindness when life gave him every reason not to. Her attack would come, her accusations would spill, and the energy of the room would shift dramatically. But even then, she would not destroy him. She would only reveal him, reveal the strength the world admired, reveal the grace that defined him, reveal the kind of heroism no film could capture, and when the time came, millions watching would understand a powerful truth. For several minutes, the interview remained light, hearted, exactly what audiences expected when Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson appeared anywhere. Sarah Haynes leaned forward with genuine excitement sparkling in her eyes, unable to hide that she was simply a fan fortunate enough to share a stage with someone she admired. "That's wonderful," she said, her smile wide and unfiltered. "And I have to say your social media posts about filming had me cracking up. That video of you squeezing into that tiny trailer, I watched it at least 5 times. The audience erupted with laughter, recalling the viral clip instantly." Johnson chuckled too, that deep, warm laugh that vibrated through the room and made everyone feel like they were in on the joke. "Yeah, well, when you're 6'5" and built like I am," he replied, shrugging playfully. "Even the biggest trailer feels like a dollhouse. But hey, that's part of the fun. You've got to be able to laugh at yourself, right?" The charm was effortless. He spoke with the vulnerability of a loving father when discussing his daughters telling stories of tea parties, school drop-offs, and how they didn't care one bit that their dad was a global superstar. To them, he was just daddy. He shifted seamlessly to business, describing the joy he took in running a production company that prioritized diversity not as performative virtue, but as a foundational principle. He shared his belief that stories must lift people up, that a movie isn't worth doing unless someone somewhere walks away feeling stronger. The energy in the studio was electric and hopeful. Every word felt like a reminder that success and humility could coexist beautifully. The audience was transfixed, leaning forward, as if afraid to miss even a breath. Even the camera crew, usually mechanical in their movements, seemed unusually dialed in, smiling behind their lenses. This was the Dwayne Johnson the world adored. A rare figure, powerful without arrogance, famous without ego. But then, the air changed. like a quiet drop in temperature before a storm. Joy Behar shifted in her seat, the movement small, but the ripple enormous. Experienced producers watching from behind the monitors exchanged looks. They'd seen this shift before, a pivot from collaboration to confrontation. Her smile faded, replaced by a tight, calculating expression. Her eyes, moments earlier feigning fondness, hardened with intent. She straightened her posture like a prosecutor preparing for cross-examination. People in the room didn't know yet what was coming, but they felt it. Sonny Hostin glanced sideways, sensing the tension. Alyssa Farrah Griffin's enthusiastic posture softened into guarded stillness. Even Whoopi Goldberg's eyebrows rose, as if to say, "Don't do this." Suddenly, the safety and joy of the moment cracked. Dwayne continued smiling, unaware of the shift, still radiating positivity, still trusting the space he was in. Then Joy spoke. Her tone had transformed warm honey turning into cold steel. "Dwayne." She began, stretching his name with slow precision. "I've been listening to everything you're saying, and honestly, I have to ask." The pause was deliberate, a pause meant to draw blood. Gone was the friendly curiosity of a talk show host. This was accusation, this was ambush, this was a match being struck in a room filled with gasoline. Her voice sharpened, each word suddenly carrying the weight of judgment. "Are you being real with us here, or is this just your act?" Murmurs rippled through the audience, confused, surprised. Some gasped softly, others stiffened, hands tightening around their phones. The studio moments ago, a playground of laughter, now resembled a courtroom. But it wasn't just the words, it was the way she said them, cold, confrontational, as though she had been waiting to deliver that one line, as though this not celebration had been her objective from the beginning. Johnson's expression flickered, not fear, not anger, just a momentary recognition that the temperature of the conversation had plummeted. In a single instant, everything changed. The smiles froze, the air grew heavy, the cameras seemed to zoom in a little closer. The studio audience held its breath. This wasn't friendly television anymore. This was a test, because suddenly a beloved icon wasn't being interviewed. He was being interrogated. Dwayne's eyes, full of warmth seconds earlier, narrowed just slightly, his instincts kicking in. Years of navigating fame had trained him for conflict like this, but that didn't make it pleasant. For the first time since he walked onto the stage, he found himself wondering, what's really going on here? Yet even now, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't bristle. He didn't fight fire with fire. He sat in stillness, composed, grounded, a man choosing grace in the face of provocation. Joy leaned forward, sensing the shift she had been hungry for, mistaking his quiet strength for vulnerability. She continued, voice dripping with self-righteous certainty, "Because some people believe," another pause, another blade, "that this whole nice guy thing is just a marketing strategy, a brand, a performance you put on because it sells tickets." The silence that followed was suffocating. What had moments ago been a celebration of kindness had transformed into a spectacle of hostility. A line had been crossed, not just a line of politeness, a line of humanity. The world would soon find out how Dwayne Johnson responded. Not the movie star, not the wrestler, not the online motivator, but the man, because in this fictional story, his greatest strength would not be measured by muscle, but by restraint. The audience waited. The crew waited. The entire room waited. Dwayne Johnson took one calm breath, a breath that would define everything to come. And from that moment forward, the View was no longer a talk show. It was a battlefield. Joy Behar tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing behind her glasses as if she were preparing to examine a witness on national television. "I have to ask you about something that's been bothering me for quite a while now," she said. No humor, no smile, no trace of the friendly host persona she'd worn just minutes earlier. The shift was so sudden that the air in the room seemed to thicken in confusion. Dwayne Johnson kept his expression warm, the polished grace of a man accustomed to thousands of interviews. But something in his posture shifted, a subtle tightening of his shoulders, a deeper inhale, not fear awareness. His instincts told him the ground beneath this conversation was no longer stable. "Sure, Joy," he replied, careful and composed. "What's on your mind?" Joy leaned forward, elbows on the table, fingers laced together like a prosecutor preparing to present Exhibit A. The change in her body language was pronounced. She was no longer hosting. She was hunting. Well, she began, voice slow and pointed. I've been watching your career trajectory very closely, and I have to say, I'm deeply concerned about the message you're sending to young people, especially young men. A visible wave of discomfort rippled across the panel. Sunny Hostin shifted uneasily. Sarah Haynes' eyes flicked nervously toward the producers. Alyssa Farah Griffin straightened, instantly alert. And Whoopi Goldberg, a TV veteran who'd seen more than her share of live show disasters, raised her eyebrows in alarm. This wasn't on the cue cards. This wasn't pre-interviewed. This was a blindside. The audience, once buzzing with excitement, fell silent. Not the silence of attentiveness, but the silence of dread. I'm not sure I follow, Dwayne answered, voice still calm but underridden with caution. What message are you referring to? Joy didn't hesitate. This whole macho muscle bound solve everything with violence persona. Her tone sharpened with every syllable, slicing through the positivity in the room like a blade. Don't you think that's deeply problematic in today's society? Don't you think you're perpetuating the worst aspects of toxic masculinity? A collective inhale. Some audience members exchanged uneasy looks. Others stared ahead in disbelief, as if hoping they'd misunderstood. A few even looked angry on The Rock's behalf. Critique, sure. Ambush, that was different. Johnson's jaw flexed an instinctive reaction, not of aggression but restraint. His heartbeat didn't rise, his temper didn't flare. Years of discipline in wrestling rings, on film sets, in the public eye had taught him that the true test of character is how one responds when unfairly attacked. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, smooth, the sound of a man who had built his life around emotional control. Joy, he began gently, I think there might be a fundamental misunderstanding here. I've spent my entire career, really, my whole life trying to promote positivity, hard work, treating people with respect and dignity. I'm honestly not sure where this accusation is coming from. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't lash out. He simply tried to clarify with kindness, but Joy was not interested in clarification. Oh, please, she scoffed, flicking her hand in dismissive annoyance as if the very idea of Dwayne defending himself was absurd. Audience members recoiled slightly at the blatant disrespect. Joy continued, her voice growing harsher. You make movie after movie where the only way problems get solved is by punching someone. You brag about being big and strong, and these young boys watching you, they think that's what a real man is supposed to be. You're teaching them that compassion, weakness and muscles are everything. The accusation wasn't just harsh, it was wildly disconnected from reality. Dwayne blinked once, processing, then leaned forward slightly, not in confrontation, but in effort to reach common understanding. I don't believe that's true, he said slowly. In fact, I try very hard to show vulnerability. My struggles with mental health, my past failures, the importance of empathy. If anything, I want young men to know they can be strong and kind, that real strength comes from lifting people up. But Joy wasn't listening, she wasn't debating, she was executing. And what about your wrestling career? She fired back, teaching people that violence is entertainment, that domination equals success. At this point, even the crew looked stunned. Camera operators shifted awkwardly. A producer backstage muttered into a headset, clearly debating whether to intervene. Sunny Hostin cut in softly, attempting to cool the flame. I think to be fair, she said, Dwayne's work also highlights. But Joy held up her hand sharply, cutting both Sunny and the conversation off. No, I want him to answer, she insisted. The audience reacted with a collective murmur, some gasping, others glaring at Joy for the rudeness. Dwayne's demeanor remained remarkably composed. His eyes, calm but firm, met Joy's unwaveringly. Joy, he said, professional wrestling is performance, storytelling, and the messages I promote outside of the ring, gratitude, perseverance, love, have always been what I stand for. I would never encourage anyone to harm others or treat strength as a weapon. Joy smiled, not the smile of friendliness, but the smile of someone who believed she was winning a fight no one else saw. Well, that's not what I see, she retorted, and that was the moment the audience truly turned against her. Not because she asked a tough question, tough questions are fair, but because she ignored the answer, because she refused to see the man in front of her, because her goal wasn't truth, it was humiliation. Hidden microphones picked up the sound of whispering in the audience. Why is she doing this? This is uncomfortable. She's being unfair. Dwayne exhaled slowly, the kind of breath one takes not from stress, but from a deliberate choice to remain grounded. His voice, when he spoke again, held a weight no insult could bend. I think compassion and kindness are some of the strongest things a person can show. And if anything I've done has inspired someone to believe that they're capable of becoming their best self, then I'm proud of that. Very proud. Even the cameras seemed to lean closer, as if drawn to the dignity radiating from him. Joy opened her mouth, ready to escalate further, but for the first time, there was hesitation. She could feel the room shifting. Audience loyalty was realigning. Her confidence wasn't quite as solid now, because she had underestimated something. Dwayne Johnson's strength had never been his muscles. It had always been his character. And millions watching inside the studio and beyond were seeing that truth unfold in real time.